Dave Newman. This is Scott Glue.
Good morning, everyone. How are you? There's no signal. God damn it. Ruse, help me. Just carry on. I'll carry on.
We're Morning Startup, your morning startup. We meet here every 2 weeks without fail to talk all things startup and help you basically get further along in your journey. Been doing this since late 2011, and we have a theme that we follow.
Yes, we do. We like to know what you guys are doing. Shameless plugs and announcements. Who would like to make one? I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces here. You all know how this goes. Awesome.
So basically, the whole point is for networking and to understand people. I know you put your hand up. Sure, yeah. So when you do it, introduce yourself, what you're working on, and most importantly, have an ask.
Okay, so hello everybody. My name's Ryan. I am working on a language learning app. Not like Duolingo. We want to get you to learn by listening and speaking. So we have an AI model and personas with different personalities where you can have a conversation or practice a scenario.
What's your ask?
We're on the App Store. We've been up for the last 2 weeks. It's called Sceni, S-C-E-N-I. If you're on Android, I'm sorry. We're only a team of 2. We're working our best. But yeah, give it a try and let me know what you think.
Fantastic. How long have you been going for?
Oh, thank you.
5 months.
5 months.
Yeah, 5 months.
What
Cool.
languages?
We got 35 of them, so if you ask me, it's probably on there.
All right. Awesome.
Yeah, that's the one.
Oh,
We're still getting the mic issue. Don't worry.
had this last
Should we try
time.
this one instead?
Sorry, man, how do we spell it? S-C-E-N-I.
Go ahead.
There's a very particular angle you got to hold it at. So
Is
that,
it?
well, I don't know. That's what you said last week. Not last week. The time before.
I think it's when you shake it and things.
Yeah.
So.
Or touch it with 2 hands. It doesn't like to be touched with 2 hands. So.
We're talking about the mic here.
So my name's Kaylee. I'm the owner of a company called Sensorium. Essentially what we are is we're your growth partner. We actually specialise in market validation, so including things like customer research, general market research, customer insights, development of MVPs for organisations all the way through to brand, and then evolving that into a strategy and then a plan of how you put that out into the marketplace. My ask is, if you want to have a chat just about general marketing strategy, any insights, come and have a chat. You know, there's no attachments whatsoever. I'm here to help educate and inform. I'm not here to sell, so I'm here just to support you.
Awesome. Thanks very much.
Anyone else?
Shameless plugs, announcements.
We've got a lot to get through today, so we will
All right.
keep it.
Very well. Actually, I've got a...
Sorry, was there someone... Was there... I know... No? Okay. Go ahead.
So, shameless plug. So, found a Sundowner, first Wednesday of every month at Nowhere Man Brewery, but I've crossed it out because the next one we're at Fat Brew Club at City West, because Nowhere Man had an event on and they kicked us out. First time it's ever happened. So, if you're just like turning up to Nowhere Man every first Wednesday of every month, don't next time. Go to Fat Brew Club. It's right outside the train station at City West. See you there next week. And they asked, the Founder Institute got in touch with me to do a shout out. They're having a drinks event tonight at the Stables Bar. All are welcome, I believe. So head to meetup.com, and it's on the Perth Startup Founder 101 meetup group on Meetup. And yeah, come along tonight if you want to have a bevy at Stables from 6 p.m.
And massive thank you to the New Industries Funds. They are streaming it to the regions for us, and for those who want to watch it later in the comfort of their bed. But we prefer you in here because you get free food and you get free coffees. But thanks to the Department of Jobs, Tourism, Science and Innovation and the New Industry Fund, because they are responsible for Innovator of the Year, so stuff like the Waves programme, the Extend programme, and also for giving us wa.dealroom.co. So if you haven't been to wa.dealroom.co, go along. Look at your profile. There's actually a lot of information on companies there, and you'll be surprised if you are running a startup here. There is a high probability you are on there.
Dave was very surprised about the
I was very surprised.
Like,
where have you got that information from? But there is information on there.
If you want to know Dave's underpants colour, go to dealroom.co and you'll find out. Okay. Morning Startup Perth, perthvideo.com.au/Morning Startup Perth. It is being live streamed to the world. Check it out there. Thank you to Perth Video. And
Ammo
Marketing.
The banner is here. If you are looking for a
week.
boutique marketing company and you're looking for someone to support you in getting up and running and all things marketing, then go and speak to the team at Ammo. And also go and check out the Weird Growth podcast. It's really cool. I don't know how regularly it is, but there's a lot of content on there, and there's a lot of good insight.
Yeah, I actually haven't seen a new one for a little while.
Yes.
Where is Jack? He's not here.
Not here.
Okay, I'll kick him up the butt. Give us some more weird growth. Not that sort of weird growth. All right, Beecham Group.
Glenn's not here, but if you are looking for someone to recruit someone, or you're looking for a new job, then check out Beecham Group. The boutique recruitment specialist here in WA, and they're really good. Glenn's normally here, so he'll tell you about the markets, he'll tell you what's going on, how it's trending. And just as a side note, we got these supporters because Scott and I do this for the love of the startup ecosystem. There's no money here, but we like to put on coffees, and the way we support it is by getting these people in to help us.
Yes, that's right. Cool. And Keep Space. Yes.
Who's doing e-commerce here? Anyone? No? It's lost on you. Just say thanks to Jesse for the food. But
Thanks,
if
Jesse.
you are in e-commerce and if you understand 3PL, then
third-party logistics.
Third-party logistics.
I've got that down now.
You can basically have your sort of Shopify store, and any things are then dispatched through Keep Space.
Yeah.
Just big shout out to Keep Space, and thank you for the food.
I have a warehouse in Perth, warehouse in Melbourne. Help you out with all that stuff. And I think this is last but not least, TechOn. Thank you, Matt, and the folks at TechOn. No Patrick today? No, sleeping in. Fair enough. Who's got a coffee? Who got a free coffee at Joey Zaz's?
Yay!
Nice.
Can
we all say thank you, TechOn? Thank you, TechOn. Awesome. Thanks very much.
If you are looking for a development team, then check out Matt and the team at TechOn. Great from a point of view is they'll charge you in dollars, even though you're going to get an offshore cost developer pricing. So,
Yeah, I've used
You're
them.
not
I've
having
used
to
them.
pay the
They're all good.
fluctuations in the dollar, which is pretty bad at the moment.
All right.
And last but not least, Space Cubes. We couldn't do this without them giving us this space for free and bringing you beautiful people in. If you are looking for a co-working space or to start in your startup, then check out Riff or Fern or Flux. And also we've got the Western Sydney Startup Hub, which I handed my notice into them this week.
Yeah.
We found our proper home, so we've now,
Okay.
yes.
You've got an actual office.
We've got an actual office, yeah. 500 squares. Ouch,
Good job.
that's going to cost. The last but not least, we've got Start News. Who subscribed? There wasn't one last Friday. Did you not notice that? Did anyone else miss out on Friday's Start News? Yeah, it didn't go out. I wonder what's going on.
Jeez, okay.
Yeah, I literally
All
do
right.
check for it in my mailbox. Like, where is it? All the ones, and it wasn't there. So if you're watching this Startup News, shame on you.
Get on it.
Get on it.
Startup WA. Does everyone know about who's not a member of Startup WA? Okay, go to startupwa.whatever, become a member. It's free. And you'll get their announcements, you'll get all the stuff that's happening in WA on the startup ecosystem, invites to their events, and they're basically our mob to help lobby to government about anything that we need, more funding opportunities, whatever it might be. All of that cool stuff that you see Jitsi doing now, that's pretty much thanks to the guys at Startup WA that have been doing that for the last 10 years or so. So, yeah, become a member.
And last but not least, Plus 8. We've got a few alumni here, but if you are looking to kind of go through the whole accelerator program thing and understand and get you from zero to hero, then check out Plus 8. Great. In fact, I'd probably say it's Australia's leading accelerator program now.
Australia's the leading
you think now
accelerator.
it's over Sydney as well, because I have done some mentoring sessions over there. And,
Yeah, cool.
And obviously we've got 2 or 3 here, and then they're also in the region. So I'd say it's definitely grown some, that's for sure.
We've got some Plus 8 current cohort people here. When's the demo night? That's coming up, isn't it?
Pretty sure there's one tonight. There's a pre-accelerator.
It's on the 9th, because it's October.
October 9th.
Yeah, so it's something like October 9th is your pitch night, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, that big one.
Yeah, that's a big one.
I remember the slide I didn't put in now. So, in 2 weeks' time, we are doing a Pitch Your Startup event. So we'll get 6 to 8 startups, whoever apply, to practice their 3-minute pitch. So if you want to practice just communicating your idea, it's really a good idea just to get reps under your belt, standing up in front of people, talking about your business, going through who are my customers, what's their big gnarly problem, and how's my graceful solution the best solution in the market. So if you can do those things and you want to practice it, get in touch. Contact a Morning Startup. It's probably the best way. Send us an email and we'll get you on the list. I think we've got 3 on the list already. And Matt's going to do a CTO school. And we've got 2 others on the list. So cool. Anyone else interested in doing a 3-minute pitch? Yeah. All right. Yeah. Cool. We're filling it up. Sweet.
Excellent.
Cool.
And we will be,
yes.
I think one thing I will come across in my presentation is we will be harsh. Okay? The gloves are
We'll
off.
be supportive.
We'll be supportive?
We'll be,
supportive. Yeah, that's a good word. Good word.
Way to sell it, Dave.
Yes.
We got to grill you to you. Yeah, that's right. No, well, that's the idea, right? We're all supportive people. We all want to see WA startups succeed. So, ask questions. We'll have the 3-minute pitch and then a few minutes of Q&A and just getting that useful feedback. All right, cool. So, reach out to us, contact@morningstartup.com, and I'll put you on the list. But that is it from me. This is exciting. We've got our very own Dave Newman here, who has been through the ringer. You've been doing Startup Land for 13 years?
Something like that, and the previous in the UK.
Yep. So, he's been validating customers. He's been going through also the Plus 8 program where you learn a lot through that. You know your shit, basically, is what I'm trying to say.
Thank you.
And you're going to take us through validating customers and building MVPs for not much money at all, because it's a common problem that we see when just having conversations with a lot of people. It's like, I just need to raise $250,000 so that I can, make this thing that I've got in my brain. It's like, you don't actually. You could probably make it a lot cheaper than that, or at least find out if people want it before you spend that much money. Anyway, I'm going to hand over to Dave. Tell us all about it.
Thank you.
Please make him welcome. forgot my dad joke.
Oh, there, go on. We'll move on. Thank you. Right. I don't know, just is it that one? Okay. If I forget it ever again, I want you to stand up. No, I want the formalities. Right. I won't keep this on because you will go ouch after this. But my name's Dave Newman. Yes, I've run startups for a number of time. My current startup, we started 3.5 years ago. We're currently doing over 7 figures a month, 65 staff, offices here in Perth and in Sydney. But the only reason I got there is because I made every single possible mistake on the way, and I will probably continue to make lots of mistakes along the way. There's one thing, though, that I did learn when going through this journey. And actually, funny enough, I was having a conversation with another local well-known celebrity in the startup system, where basically we came to the conclusion that we've almost got a little bit soft here in WA, okay? In as much as there was a period of time back in sort of like 2015 through to sort of 2018 where, again, there was the feedback that we did get from a lot of the mentors was very to the point. It's very supportive, but it was very to the point. And I feel that possibly as an ecosystem, we've lost some of that. And we maybe need to bring some of it back to help some of you readjust your compass to face true north and actually achieve some of the goals that you want. Now, one of the lessons I learned from this was, are you a painkiller or a vitamin? Does anybody know what I mean when I say this? All right? Yeah, a few hands here. What it essentially means is, my school of thought, you could agree, you could disagree, is that if I'm sat with a migraine, I'm more likely to pay hard-earned cash for a pill that will take the pain away versus something that's going to give me a vitamin C boost, right? And again, that is the true form. But are you solving a true problem that someone is willing to pay money for? Or are you kind of like anecdotal, you're just going to improve the level of their life just incrementally? You've got to ask that question on whether or not that your startup does that, because that will then also help you define where you're going in your journey and how you're going to approach it. Ultimately, you kind of need to get to paying customers or a revenue model as fast as possible. The days of when, don't worry, we used to joke in the Silicon Valley sitcom, you ever seen that, don't worry, we don't need revenue because revenue's bad because then they can actually value us against it. Those days have gone, right? Now it's about how are you going to get to market, how are you going to get customers, how are you going to get money, and how are you going to start ultimately pay for things. And so this has always stuck with me, this whole, are you a painkiller or a vitamin? And my personal thing is, if I'm looking at a startup, I'm always asking myself that question is, if I was a consumer, would they really solve a problem for me, or are they just going to be anecdotal? And it's a bit like a Netflix subscription, you know, or the multiple subscriptions. Very easy to turn off, and they're not going to improve my life, but I might bring them on for 2 months and then get rid of them because I like that series. That's a very hard business model to kind of really, truly succeed in, I believe. The other thing I see here, and this is another hard truth to ask yourselves, is, are you a zombie startup, right? And I see, I'm not going to mention any name, I see a lot of these in Perth, right? And the reason I see this is because I will speak to you, and Scott will speak to you, and all the other mentors, and they go, yes, how's it going? Oh, well, I'm waiting on to get a permission from this person. I'm waiting to speak to get a license from the council to do X, or I'm waiting to do Y. And when I see that in my head, I'm like, you're working over here. You're not working on the core problem. You haven't yet validated whether or not there is actually a customer willing to pay hard-earned cash or part with money for the solution that you're ultimately solving, right? And I had one last 2 weeks ago. I went and spoke to them again. Where are you? Where have you moved in the journey? They're like, oh, yeah, well, we're waiting for the lawyers to give us this. I'm like, sorry, in the nicest possible way, I won't swear, but, you know, thingy lawyers, you need to go back and seek that customers want to do it. Did Uber ask permission from the taxi companies to go and deliver a rideshare service? Did Airbnb go and get permission from the councils and that, or the hotel association before they did it? No. They basically went and validated their customer problems first and foremost before they worried about all the other peripheral problems of their startup. And again, I would challenge you all, are you solving that problem, or are you focusing here where you're actually going to get to validation quickly? So in the eyes of Eric Ries, if you've not heard of Eric Ries, go and Google him, very famous, but the minimal viable product is a version of a product which allows the team to collect as much maximum amount of validating or learning data so they can validate the customers want their product, basically. Okay? We're going to go a little bit more into this, but there's going to be a theme here about what there is. You'll also hear the term minimal lovable product, and I think it's mature enough now between a minimal viable product and a minimal lovable product. There's enough definition now to explain what either one of those can or are. And then I guess a real pictorial version of that is, if I was to create a cake, a sponge cake, that's my minimal viable product, but to be fair, it's going to be a pretty crap customer experience. So do I need to go to that next level to go, actually, that's the next point where I need to get it, and that's my minimal lovable product, okay? Now, the question you guys and girls have to ask yourself is, have you got a product or service that someone is willing to pay for, or you've got a business model where you can make money? And I see this so often, like, I've got to build this product, I've got to go, I'm waiting on the developers to do this to get to me to this point, and they still haven't answered that core question of, is there a market there for it, right? How can it show me where someone is willing to pay money for it? And again, then the other thing, and I haven't heard this since sort of late sort of 2015 to 2018, back in the era where they're harsh, is who's actually validating the hypothesis of how their startup exists, okay? So you've got an idea, and we'll create a fake company today, but I've got an idea for X, but my hypothesis is that people are willing to pay Y for that particular product. The X is not what I'm interested in, it's the Y, right? Like, will people pay for this product? And if there is, because if no one's willing to pay for it, then you haven't got a business. And the other thing I see as well is you may be really super passionate about that problem, right? But is it a problem that's worth solving as well? And the reason we say this, and the reason that we are somewhat to the point, is each of us only have a certain amount of rotations around the sun. Is very much in the way of love that we want you to use that time working on something that actually is going to drive an output, rather than being someone that I'm going to talk to 2 years later who's still working on the same problem because they haven't been able to properly validate if that is a problem that somebody wants to solve or wants to pay money or that. Because it's great if it's a project, that's cool, that's a project, but it's not a startup, okay? Okay, so why do we need a minimal viable product? Really good diagram, because I think the one that we've seen it all. Every time we literally look at any parks, you'll see this picture, you'll see this happening where the council's gone, we want the customers to go this way, and the customer's gone, bugger that, I'm going that way. And you'll see this pathway through. But basically, a minimal viable product is something that gives you enough data to essentially validate that your hypothesis is true, or disprove it. And again, from the person who's got there and got the T-shirt and the scars, is going through and just proving it. You may go, do you know what? I've got to the point now where I have to just, throw this away. And my current company is almost kind of evidence of that, because in the previous, those of you who know me previously, in the previous start, my previous partner, that was a good company. That was making several million a year. However, I kind of thought, I'm going to just throw that in, because I think there's a bigger problem over here to solve. And I literally threw everything in, all the shares, literally walked away from it and thought, I'm going to risk it all and going to solve this, because I actually think this is like a $100 million problem. And so then that whole sunk cost fallacy comes into play, because you're like, I can't, because I've already invested 3 years of my life into this project. I have to see it through. You have to have that really deep internal look at yourself and go, do I want to spend another 3 years? If it's not working out. And again, it's something only you can answer that question. But coming back to what an MVP is simply a mechanism for you to prove or disprove a hypothesis, and it's about collecting the data. Now, what we often see in startup land is when we're building our MVP and we're talking about it, we're going, yeah, well, I need this first, and then I need that, and then I need this, and I need that, then I can launch. And I'm saying to you, you don't. What you really need is to just validate that what you've got is true, and you need a very thin sliver of everything. And hopefully today I'll give you some tools to do that, because I don't think, in the nicest way, and Techon, I'm going to hate me saying this, you don't need to speak to Techon, straight away. You need to speak to them in maybe the third iteration of your MVP.
That's true.
Thank you, Techon, for validating that. So let's look at a mode of transport. I love this picture, because it really kind of pictorializes essentially what an MVP is. If I'm looking at designing a new form of transport, what is it? We see so often that startups get stuck on just trying to design the wheel, but ultimately what we're trying to do is say, look, how can I get you from A to B? would a skateboard do? Let's get the data. Here you go. Tell me what it was like. Let's get the data to understand what the user experience was. The user may come back and go, do you know, it was really good, but every time I came to a stop, I found myself going over the front. Okay, well, how about we put in a pole at the front of this skateboard, and all of a sudden it kind of morphs into a scooter, so then I've got front support. And then you iterate from the data that you're getting constantly from this first edition of your minimal viable product all the way through ultimately to a car. When building your product, keep that in the front of your mind at all times. You do not have to build everything. You just need to validate what a customer wants. Your mission is to kill your idea. Right? Your idea is worthless. Right? You have to basically try and kill your idea. If you can do that, if you kill it, then you know you've saved yourself some time. If it keeps coming back and you go in the data points and telling me there is something here, then you need to take that next step. You need to prove that thing, that hypothesis. You need to understand what it is the customer is willing to pay for. And I tell you why that's really important is because you may set out, and I did this myself, we set out with a product and we went, we kind of think people will pay for this. In reality, when we started seeing them using the product, they were using it for something completely separate. It was actually, we built a tool that we thought they wanted to use for mapping. They weren't. They were using it for sales. And we went, oh, wait a second. There's a whole new genre of product here and a whole new area. And it was that data from the MVP that we were able to understand and essentially make a pivot. If you're not pivoting fast enough, again, you're just as bad as being a zombie company. And I think if I look at the companies that have done really well here, I don't think Tyler would mind me talking about Unigroup, the previous company was here presenting. They've pivoted a lot, but to their kudos, they've done really well, and they've kept alive by moving with what the market is telling them and the data they're receiving. And that's the same for all, good startups where they are and what they see. They are constantly pivoting. They're constantly looking at the data they're getting to iterate on the next variant. I see so many of you drinking this. Stop drinking your own Kool-Aid. It's good to drink a bit of a Kool-Aid to sort of that. What I mean by this is that you get so passionate about your own idea, which is great, but you have to take a step back. You have to look at the data points that the data is telling you and stop telling you that in so many years, this is going to be great. The other thing I also see is they go, I'm going to be like this company here. And they see this kind of like trophy company. They go, I can be like that company. But if you've been around the tracks enough, you actually learn to look at that company and you can go, I can see all the holes that company's going through, all the issues they've got. Do not base yourself on the fact that you want to be that company, because I can assure you that company's got some issues inside of it. And I've seen that a few in some of the Bloom companies I saw. A lot of them have aspirations to go, I wanted to do this. And when they showed me that company, we were like, okay, I can tell you now, literally from looking at this, these are the problems they're experiencing. You do not base yourself on trying to mimic what that company is doing. Create your own beat, create your own tune, and dance to that. Okay, let's get into actual MVPs and how you can validate that MVP. Again, just quickly, this is a presentation that would normally be done in 2 to 3 hours, and we're going to condense it right down into sort of 30 minutes. So an early stage startup MVP should not be about software. If you are building software, stop, use that money elsewhere. There are lots of other ways that you can validate whether or not your idea is true and will make money. It's about validating the fact that somebody wants to pay your money. Okay, again, reoccurring theme here. Validation, using the data points you get from the information you get from your customers, use it, iterate to the next one. Take that information, iterate, use it for the next one. Keep doing that to the point that you find that little niche that you're working on that you never originally set out to do is actually a really big market. And this is the other lesson I will give to you is, and this is really hard because I remember sat where you are, a decade or so ago, if not more, and I'd want to boil the ocean. Okay, you want to go like I can do this, I can do that, I can do that. Don't boil the ocean. Pick a niche and go really tight into that niche. Niche is where you start; it is not where you finish. Okay, and it's really important that you kind of look at that. And you may go, I originally set out to do X. But now I'm in a very niche market of Y, but I'm going to own that market really, really well. And from that, you may then pivot. Anybody know any really good niche stories? Any niche companies that come to mind? No? Amazon, 100%. Amazon started with books. right? But he always had the view of going anything online, right? But he started in the niche of books out of his garage, and he just basically went from there to other places. Okay, so what does an MVP look like? I love this slide. It's playing, isn't it? Yes. Right. It is so easy today to make yourself look like a really big company, right? You should not be afraid of the fact that you look like like making yourself look like a big company. There may be two of you, may even be one of you, and you've got the first customer, and they have an inquiry. Oh, let me send that through to accounts. Okay. What's the address for account? Oh, it's accounts@mycompany.com. And then all of a sudden you put the accounts hat on. Hi, this is so-and-so from accounts. Don't be afraid to have different kind of pseudonyms in the business. It's okay. Customers will never know. But it's so easy to make yourself look bigger than you actually are, and make yourself essentially not look like a startup if you're worried about that, just from the point of view of validating that your MVP and your hypothesis is true. And this is a great example because it's like, yeah, tick it in, and there's different ways you can do it. You don't need to build software. You don't need to build all these complex systems. You essentially, the next slide, you can Wizard of Oz it. And I've done this so many times to validate a problem, which is, does anybody know what I mean by Wizard of Oz? No? The whole hypothesis, or the whole thing behind Wizard of Oz is they sat there and they went, oh, it's this big person on a screen, it's this big mysterious person. But actually it's a guy with grey hair behind a curtain, pulling levers and controlling what's going on. That in the startup world is called the Wizard of Oz, okay? And so that essentially is from a customer point of view, you may look like a big new e-commerce store. It's got all of this stuff on it, but in reality, it's just you, and you're doing 100 different jobs, but you're still validating what's happening behind it. And they may think, oh, I go on. Like, let's say, for example, you've set up an e-commerce store to buy gift cards. This was a great one because I think this was actually a startup weekend one. They actually. Their whole thing was they created a store where you can go and buy any kind of gift card online. And what they did is they'd get an order for their shop, and then they'd run someone out to Coles or Kmart. They'd scratch off the back of the card and then put that in an email within half an hour, so it looked like the person's had some automated email that comes back from the system. And that's what we mean by Wizard of Oz. It's all manual behind the scenes. But in reality, what you're doing is you're making yourself look like this automated system. It goes, oh, that's really good. I literally put in my credit card details, and half an hour later I get an email with this code and the validated from. And in reality, what it is someone's just whizzed off down a JB Hi-Fi or Coles. They've scratched off the back of the card and they've sent it to you. Okay? When you're validating your MVP, there is a process that you should take, right? We're going to start with validating our demand. So how big is the market? You need to decide how many customers you get. Again, this is another issue I see often with startups is they've not validated how and when they're going to make the money. So they've gone, I've got this idea. And I give an example. The company will name nameless. I mentored them a few years ago. And we got right the way down to a final part in a accelerated program. I said, okay, what do you want to talk about? I don't know. Okay, let's talk about how you're going to make money. And we literally started at the top and we said, right, it's going to cost you probably as a small startup $750,000 to run your business. It's going to cost you $150 for a developer. You want to pay yourselves as a startup probably a small wage of $60,000 and you $60,000. You need a bit of marketing. Right, that's $750 is your operating cost for that year. Now then, let's divide that by 12. How many customers? All the way down. Right. They hadn't even got to the point where they'd gone, in order for them to make any money at all, they'd been needing to bring on 2,000 clients based on their current model. Okay? They hadn't done that real kind of just basic business modeling piece. And then we said, well, how many customers you got at the moment? I've got 100 with a letter of intent. I'm like, you are literally 100x off where you need to be. And so I'd probably go right the way back to go, is your business even valid? Can you make a business out of your idea? So what you need to do is basically validate market demands, because if you're going, I need to be bringing on 10,000 new clients a month, I'm going to tell you that's really freaking hard, right? You then need to go to basically then move to validating the value. So if I can bring on 10,000 clients a month, would they pay the money that I want them to pay for it? And then once I get past that, I need to go, can I feasibly build it? Because if I'm going to send 10,000 people to a holiday on the moon, right, and I'm going to charge them $10,000 for it. Actually, can I actually feasibly build a rocket for that? No. So again, it comes back to my whole business model and that. So the whole point of the MVP is that feasibility and value and demand piece, and there's ways I can validate each of those by not even spending a dime or a cent on it through some of these avenues. For example, Facebook, I've seen lots of companies start with Slack group. There's a lady called Emily. She actually created the What the Health business. It's like a channel, a group for people in the medical industry and health industry. She started literally with about, I think it was less than 100 of us. We all joined a Slack group to share information. She then said, would you pay $100 a year to be part of the Slack group? We went, well, shit, yeah, there's a value there because I'm able to converse easily with them. And then she went, okay, what happens if I was to add like meetings and group people like that? And slowly she built her brand up. And she built it from literally starting with an email through LinkedIn and a Slack channel. As simple as that. Didn't cost her a penny. Right? It's now one of the biggest health networking, a bit like Morning Startup. It's huge. Thousands and thousands of people on it. So again, you don't need to spend the money to go and validate your idea. You just need to get to the basics. You don't need to cut any code. What am I doing for time? Okay, one of them, personal concierge. We've seen a few of you where you've gone, I'm a domain expert and I want to take essentially what I know. So I could be a personal trainer and I want to take what I do and put it into an app. But the first part of call is you need to validate people would take that, and could you then be that personal concierge where you are essentially the product? So how do you build that first iteration of your product where it's you, but then you can slowly move yourself out of it because you've built a systems and process into that model where you're not the personal concierge. And again, the bit you could argue that the whole gift card idea was very much like this. It was like, I'm going to be the concierge on the phone, taking it, yes, 2 seconds, I will call you back if you want to do this and send you the code. Surveys, forms, pre-registrations, we all know, MailChimp, Typeform, or even Microsoft Forms, all ways for you to validate. Again, don't need to spend any money, you just literally need to validate that you've got someone who can want your idea. I think you've heard my story before. We did a morning startup. We came to morning startup thinking drones were cool. Well, I thought that would be really good. We'll just do something with drones and try and work shit out as we go along. Failed. We literally got to Saturday morning and lunchtime going, we can't validate it. There's no idea here. We're not sure what we're doing. Let's all just go home and have the rest of our weekend. And then we went, wait a second, I've got an idea. I've got an idea is I was at an event in Forest Place and my wife was with our 3-year-old at the time, and the crowd was so strong, it literally ripped Lois's arms away, and she ended up going sort of 10, 20 metres one way. My wife went the other way. Child was parted. Absolute panic. We had this idea. What happens if you were at these events, have a little tracker on your child's thing? It was just for startup weekend. We're like, okay, that's cool, but our hypothesis is, would people ever pay for it? Would they actually part hard-earned money for it? And we thought, well, there's only one way we're going to validate this, is we'll reach out to the mums of Mandurah and bless them, love them to bits. They are very vocal. So we literally went to sleep on the Saturday night, having posted 2 articles on 2 of the buy and sell Mandurah and the questions and answers in Mandurah, which both had 60,000 members in each, if not more. And we just said, look, we're doing this idea. We want to validate this idea. Would you pay money for it? Very simple. We went to sleep. I literally came back in the next morning and went, holy shit. We'd had over 3,000 comments on one and about 2,000 on the other. We'd stirred up such an emotional reaction from it, where people going, you shouldn't lose your kids, you're an irresponsible parent. And other people going, shit happens, I would do this, I would absolutely pay for this. In fact, I would want something that does X and Y and Z. And all of a sudden, they built for us the product that we did. We then came back and pitched it, and we won. All right? Because we were able to really kind of show the validation that we'd done, literally in 24 hours. And so my message to you is, you don't need to build any code. You don't need to do anything like that. You literally need to go and validate if someone's willing to pay money for your bit. And if anything, ask them for money for it. Mailing lists, very simple. MailChimp, Klaviyo. There is so many tools. And you can integrate all this stuff for free. There's a product called Make as well, make.com, where you can integrate it with Klaviyo so that when you get a mailing list come in, you basically will trigger them to send a text and that. And you could all do this for literally pennies on the dollar. Landing sites. So again, if you want to create a landing site, you want to test if it's valid. Unbounce is a classic good one to use. Instapages is another one. They all have all connections into MailChimp, Klaviyo, so when you get a lead come in, it will trigger. You go and get yourself a free HubSpot CRM to collect the leads. You can literally, if I can do it, you guys can all do it. You can connect it all for free, cost you nothing. Go and spend the $900, which I say in this, in Facebook or Google advertising or TikTok, right? And then see if someone's willing to pay for your product. I'm going to zoom through these because these are just all ways, but again, we can make these slides available. If you're looking to explain a video, I think we could get Tim Brewer in here. It'd be a good one to talk about his experience with Dropbox and how Dropbox used the video explainer just very simply to grow, and then the whole viral, if you recommend a friend, you'll get another sort of like 25 megabytes for free back those days. Shopify, Pinstripe, these things are all so easy to integrate and they are all free. Not one bit of it needs you to have any real experience. And the worst thing is if you don't have any experience, you can then go to a site like, for example, and I'll come on there, like Fiverr or Upwork, and I'll come onto those, where you can go and pay somebody to go and do it for you, and they're under contract and they won't get paid until they deliver it. So there's lots of different ways you can essentially validate whether or not a customer is willing to pay you money. Lots of different areas. Kickstarter, classic one. People actually pay for ads. Less so these days, I think a lot of people have become wise to Kickstarter. I think if you're going down the Kickstarter campaign as a company, the chances are you're probably doing a hardware piece. And I would say, my advice is, if you're going that route, I'd probably steer clear of it, unless you're on the hardware. But probably yourself, of all people, would probably be a good person to talk to about this. Or crowdfunding campaigns. But I think, again, it comes back to that you need to validate. Okay. Yeah. My dog got up from the side of when I was writing this presentation last night and moved to the other sofa when I told him I was going to rent him out. So we're going to create a company now, right? It's called Rent a Pet. I've got an idea that essentially there is a marketplace, a dog marketplace that connects owners with people who want to rent dogs, right? I've got this idea. I think that you might want to have a dog, but you're not sure. So you're going to, do you know what? Low risk. I'm going to allow you to rent Doug for a weekend, my dog. And I think you'd pay money for it, and for me, it'll help me lower the cost and also gives him a walk and stuff like that. My hypothesis is that, again, I think people will pay directly rental, and I think that people will want to get paid for it. Right? So I need to understand, is that a real thing? Is it not a real thing? How do I validate if people will want to rent dogs as my pets, or they want to, and there are people that want to, rent their dogs out? I think it's no different if it was any pet at all, but it's no different to cars, it's no different to boats. It's a true marketplace kind of play. The first thing I need to do is validate if dog owners would, one, want to rent out, and the second one, I need to validate if people would want to rent the dogs. So the same scenario in this, if it was me doing it, I'd literally go to the forums. There's lots of these. There's literally hundreds of thousands of these Facebook forums and go, create a business. I would love to have your feedback. And I'd put them on the dog ones, because there's literally in the owner Spoodle, and there's probably a good 20,000 people in WA alone who have Spoodles. But if I then put it in the manager buy and sales and all the other ones around it, I'm going to start to get feedback as to whether or not it's a good idea or not. So I'm going to create a landing page. So I'm going to go post it on all these Facebook forums that are completely free. I'm going to create a landing page to say, essentially, this is the crux of my idea. Okay, this is my hypothesis. So when someone clicks the link and they go here, would they be interested? And I'll have two forms, maybe. Yes, I'm interested in renting my dog, and two, no, I'm actually interested in other. And then I might have a little questionnaire just to validate whether or not that is true or not. Now, I would leave that. Now, how many do you think you would need to get true validation of an idea? Any ideas? If you were doing this separately, what would you think would be a good data point for validating? Yeah, valid. I would always say, literally, in this instance, I'd probably go a minimum of 1,000. I literally would say a minimum of 1,000. The mistake I see a lot of you make, and startups that go, I've had 20 people. That is not a big enough pool to me to tell you if you've got a market idea that works. Now, once that's done, I might go, actually, this is going to give me data that I don't know, right? There's lots of unknown unknowns in here. And I'm actually going to see that part of my idea is someone's gone, I wouldn't pay for this, but I'd pay for that, right? And I may morph my idea into a dog walking service or something else. So I'm going to take the data from my little MVP or my little first iteration here of understanding what it is across to this platform here where I could then start to create let's say it was a good idea, I could create my dog walking service or my dog owning service. And that would literally be, I could do that with a WordPress site, I could do it with a no-code, low-code platform, I could literally do it for free and not have to spend any money. But I'm going to take the data from iteration 1 and put it into iteration 2. And again, I'm going to gauge that feedback every single time. And this is something that you should be doing each time in validating your MVP. So how many data points do you need? We've answered this question. I would say, if it wasn't the pet one, I'd go, if I was mentoring you, I'd be like, you need a minimum of 1,000. Like, do not come back to me as your mentor until you've reached 1,000 data points and I can see what those data points are telling me, right? Because that tells me that's enough of a market, do it. Others you can get sort of from 100. We talk about 2015 to 2018, they'd literally be like, don't come back to me unless you've got 250 actual clients who you've spoken to and validated. Don't ask your family if they think your idea is good. They will always tell you it's a great idea, and that's not because whether or not they agree or not, they just love you, okay? And they'll always tell you that, unless you're me, and I'll tell my kids, no. And they'll do it anyway. But they will tell you, and it's really good. And also your close friends. To me, the ones you see succeed are the ones who've gone outside of their comfort circle and actively gone and sought external advice to what they're doing, okay, and to validate how, whether or not they think that's a good idea. So friends and family, your local network, I would go outside of your network to gauge what it is, whether or not you've got a product. So one thing there was a guy that I met, and I'm coming close to the end of this, there was a guy that I met called Jindu, who was from Happy Co, who is a company that started out in Adelaide, and they've pivoted a huge, huge company now in Brisbane. And I had the fortunate thing of actually, when I went to Silicon Valley, he was really kind enough to give a few of us like just desks in this office that we could work out of. So we were able to work out of his office for a week and get access to him and talk to him. And he told us the story. And I used to look at people and go, how have you got customers to pay for your product? Like, mine was blown. And now, having been through it, I can absolutely say 100% you can all get, if your problem is a big enough problem that somebody's willing to pay money for, they will pay you to build that product, to solve that problem, and it's your product. And I know that because I've now done it myself multiple times, where the problem we're solving, customers will pay us before we've even built the product, and we still own the IP and everything for it. So, again, it absolutely is possible to have a customer to pay for your MVP if the problem that they're solving, and again, this is how the big companies of the world operate, the IBMs, the Deloittes, all of these big companies, they have massive internal product catalogs. Those products have been built because they've been inside customers' sort of homes, listening to the problems, and they've gone, oh, we'll build that for you. They'll build it, but then they keep the IP and the product themselves, and then they sell it back to the customer. What a great model. You know, you're going to tell me the problem, you'll pay me to build the product, and then I get to sell the product back to you again, even though you've just paid for it. And again, if it's a big enough problem, they will pay for you to solve it. I won't go too much into Jindu, but other than I'll explain him. His company is a property management tool for commercial real estate, big in America now. His issue was he was a independent landlord out in Adelaide, and he had a little small portfolio of 3 or 4 companies. And he's like, I keep getting this issue where I'm going into I'm going to get an email from Jindu if he watches this and go, no, you got my story wrong. But my understanding of the story when he told us was he basically he had an issue where he couldn't do the tracking properly of incidents inside the house. So when he was doing condition reports, how do I do a condition report? How do I monitor stuff? How do I see it through? He then went to LJ Hooker in Adelaide and said, look, I've got this problem. I've kind of got this bootstrapped way I do it with these forms. Would you help pay for me to then develop a proper solution in software which will allow you to do this. They were like, shit, yeah, if you come back to me in, in 6 or 7 weeks with a solution, we'll start to pay for it. And that's essentially how HappyCo started. He was able to take what he had in spreadsheets, digitized it into a software platform, and then took it back and sold it. And they paid for it. They paid for them for the help. And they were like, I actually want this problem. I've got this. Okay, yeah, you want that. I can move it to the front of the backlog, but it's going to cost you. And so they're like, yeah, this is a big enough problem. I'll move it. Now I'm going to pay for that. But he still owns all of that IP, all of that product. So just to conclude, there are many ways in which you can get your MVP up and running. And the whole point of your MVP is not to have the first startings of your product. The point of an MVP is to validate your hypothesis. All right? Your product will iterate through and through and through and through. As an example, Airbnb's first product was simply rejigging what came off Craigslist. Right? So you literally went on Craigslist, found all the rooms available, and then went, I can rent them for you through this really basic site that they'd done. And then they built the booking system, they built all the other bits that go with it. So you don't need to spend, I would actually argue I'd say if of the $900 that I've set myself, I would use that on marketing costs to Facebook, Google, and alike. And then all the other product software like Unbounce, Insta, Klaviyo, MailChimp, Make, they all have free tiers, enough for you to go and validate. You've got access to big marketplaces where you can go to thousands of customers with Facebook, even TikTok. All of these different places you can get access if you are B2C client or product. You can easily go and validate. If you're B2B, again, I have seen some of you and I've validated some of you or mentored some of you in this room. Again, B2B is a little bit harder, but B2B is actually easier to get them, if it's a big enough pain point, to pay for your product. As an example, the way I learned from Jindu is there was a company who had a massive problem with scheduling their staff. And we went, do you know what? We were going to build a scheduling tool anyway in part of our platform. How about we bring it to the front of the crowd, or front of the list, and we'll build it for you, but it's going to cost you $250,000 to build it. They were like, shit, yeah, we'll pay $250,000 for you to build that if you can build it within sort of 6 months, because this problem for me is costing me over $1.2 million every year. So, and we said, okay, that's fine. So they paid us to build this product. That's our IP. We've now rolled it into the main product that we've got, but they paid for us to build it, and we now charge them back a license fee for it. But from then, the value, you think about the value part of your MVP, is that problem, they've been able to go from 23 schedulers down to 7. So they've had a massive saving of over $1.2 million a year. So for them to pay $250,000 and then an annual license of around 30, 40 grand is actually peanuts, because they've saved millions of dollars over the life of that product. So don't be afraid to ask that when you're going through. Okay, just to summarize, don't drink your own Kool-Aid. I'm speaking to this other mentor. I'm thinking we should get harder in telling you, stop drinking Kool-Aid. I've had this conversation with you now for 2 years in a row, and you're no further forwards. Kill it or cure it and move on. What is the data telling you? Again, you're going to go into it with a hypothesis that my hypothesis is people pay to rent dogs, and dog owners will want to rent the dogs out. I may come back and go, actually, there's a huge other problem. And that's exactly why my company exists today. So my previous company, we were doing mapping, but we got involved with a project in the disability and aged care space, and I started to learn about all of the bits, and I saw the problems in that marketplace, and I went, wait a second, there is a massive problem here to solve. And we went across that. Now, we'd never gone across here had I not gone across and done all the stuff we'd learned over here. So you have to kind of look at your journey and go, I'm willing to make that change. Did your MVP give you any unknown insights? All right. Again, if I look at the mapping product, again, there was insights in that when we were testing it, we thought we were going to sell to farmers. In fact, we ended up selling to Cintas, one of the world's largest companies in the States, because they actually saw the solution we never seen to help them in sales. And then we went, wow, whoop, pivot. Let's focus on sales. And it's okay to pivot, but just understand that you are pivoting when you're doing that. Does your proposed business model still work? Again, that's another question we see so often. If you are in your MVP and you've validated it, can you make money? Do not be the company that's going, in order for me even to cover my costs, I need to be doing 10,000 subs a month in an industry that's maybe got a market cap of 100,000. Does that make sense? So make sure you do your research, make sure the data is telling you that you can get from that. Did your proposed clients want your service or product straight away? Again, if they're willing to pay, it's a big enough problem, then you know you're potentially onto something. And last but not least, was the demand enough to build a multi-million-dollar company? Now, it's okay if your product is going to solve a problem that may drive a revenue of $750,000. That's okay. You've built a business, you've built a problem. If that's what you want, that's absolutely fine, right? But don't kid yourself that will be a $100 million company, because your mindset has to change. You have to live with being okay at $750,000. I need more coffee, right? So you have to ask yourself a question. If you're starting out and go, look, I think this will be, a huge market, what is the reality? Don't drink the Kool-Aid. That kind of concludes everything. Is there any questions?
Is that on? I don't know if that's on.
It's not on. Just speak loudly.
Just loud, all right. You hear people like Steve Jobs and even the Google founders build a product that solves the problem you have. They talk about that. Maybe you could comment on that and how people justify going and getting more data.
I had a slide. I've pulled it out. So basically the problem was Steve Jobs, right? In fact, I'm going to put it another way. So the question was, how do you know you think you're going to build a product that is the next, go from the typewriter to the keyboard as such? It's very hard because people don't know the product. I will change it. I took it out of my slide, I literally had it in my slide deck, and there was a slide of Henry Ford. It's the old saying, if Henry Ford had asked his customers what he wanted, they'd have said faster horses. All right? It's the same with Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs, I would argue, though, had data. He had prior data. So if you take the iPod and the iPhone, he already had a lot of data to support that the market was going that way, in as much as we all had a Sony Walkman. Okay, so what would be the next iteration of going from like the whole good to great? If you've ever read that book, Good to Great, it's like going, what's your next move from a typewriter to an electronic keyboard? Steve Jobs was kind of good to great because he went from the Walkman and a piece of tape with magnetic information on it to a digital format in your pocket. And he was able to really take that kind of those form factors and those market trends to move them to the next style, combined, and I was thinking about this literally this morning, which was Steve Jobs doesn't sell a product. Steve Jobs sells a type of lifestyle, right? It's like he sells you in a situation. The situation of me maybe walking through the park, listening to music, right? But it's never about the iPod itself. So I think in those instances, you've got to be pretty brave to do that. I've experienced a little bit of that myself. Like when I first started the mapping solution, we were a startup that was a problem looking for a solution. So we were a solution looking for a problem. You do not want to be in that marketplace, right? Because it is so hard. Because we were pivoting so quickly and so regularly. Like we went, farmers will buy this. Farmers are like, nah, got no money. This. And it was literally just through dumb luck that we managed to secure a demo somewhere that got us into this company. And the company guy went, actually, that's going to solve that problem. And that kind of a few hops later and being able to pivot moved it enough along to get to a point where now that product, 5 or 6, 7 years on, has really good market product fit. But there was a period of easily 3 years where if it wasn't for the services business that we created, we'd have all had day jobs. So I think if you are the next Steve Jobs, I don't want to put you off, then still go for it. Have that conviction. Do drink the Kool-Aid, but it's tough.
Questions? One at the back.
Yeah, my question is, I'm just wondering, because nowadays, we've got different social media, different means of validating, customers. But in those days, people like Henry Ford, how did they go about it? How did they find out, how did they know that, what they are going to build, the product they're going to build is going to be people are going to pay for it because they don't have all these medium, all these avenues that we have these days.
I would
How
come.
do they go about
So
it?
just to repeat, if I repeat back the question, you can nod if I've got this right. Is how did the likes of Henry Ford validate that people wanted a car versus a horse? Yeah. I think in that instance you would start, again, I'm going to try and apply that to today's market because today's market is super competitive and not saying there, but back then there weren't many people that were making those sort of like cutting edge or world-changing innovations. I think you would start with a very niche subset, right? So you start very, very small and you get a very strong following. Like everybody now, let's use the context of AI. AI has been around for decades, right? A very bad version of it. But it's only really in the last 2, 3, 4 years where it's become absolute mainstream and in front of everybody's computers. I would argue that niche, the AI niche, started years and years and years ago because there was a whole wave of machine learning is the next best thing and all that sort of stuff. But AI has been around since, like, I think, 70s? Yeah, I want to say 74 in my head or something like that. But it's been around for a number of decades, right, the whole bit of it. And there's been a really small subset of people. And so they're super interested in that whole concept. In Henry Ford's instance, he might have gone, wow, there's a really small subset of people that's interested in the traps, the horse and trap or the horse and cart, the carts. What we're going to do is we're going to put a motor in a cart, which is essentially what he did. And then they'll evolve it from that point onwards. But again, if you see something that's so innovative, you will get that crowd that comes through it. But I think it's very hard as a startup today to kind of have that Henry Ford moment or that AI. You think NVIDIA, right, who's the leading company? I remember buying NVIDIA graphics card things to put in my apricot machine back in 1995. Yeah, 1995. So like, that's how long they've been going. And half the world wouldn't have known who NVIDIA is. So I think, I'm not sure that answers your question, but I just think if you are that person going from, horse and cart to vehicle, like you start niche, you need to validate still. Any other questions?
I would add to that in the 5 whys. You've got to actually know the customer problem. Yes, his customers would have said a faster horse, but you got to go, well, why? Why do you want a faster horse? Well, because I want to be able to get over there quicker. So, well, why do you want to do that? Just keep asking why until you get to the point, well, maybe there's a more graceful solution to that core problem. That's essentially what he solved. So, yeah, don't fall in love with your solution because he could have gone down the faster horse route and just started breeding horses, right? But he didn't. So, because he wasn't in love with the solution, he settled on the campaign.
Yeah, I think you got to be tough enough to want to kill your idea.
Yeah.
And if you can be that sort of emotionally detached from it to want to kill the idea that you've got, and it still keeps coming back, then great. And I'll give an example of that, right? Who's heard of Eventbrite? Yeah, we've all used Eventbrite. Eventbrite started off as a little side project, like so many things, like Slack. Slack is a side project, right? If you don't know the story of Slack. So many of these were born through customer validation input. So the story of Eventbrite was the husband and wife team that started Eventbrite. They had another business and another project. And what happened is there was like this little project that her husband had built a few years ago that there was a few devotee kind of like users of this booking system or this ticketing system called Eventbrite. And they're like, I really love it. And they're so hardened to it. They're so niche. And it's just started to just get more and more kind of like attention to the point where they went, you know what, this is actually bigger than this business here, and we're going to put more effort into it. And it's driven because what was happening is they were listening to the feedback the customer was giving them every single time. So the customers were emailing going, look, I really like the basis of this bit. And we're talking like literally a subset of maybe a couple of hundred people that were using this platform that would then grow to 1,000, that then grow to 10,000, to 100,000. But they were giving, I'd really like it if it had this, I'd really like it to have that. And it just built and built, and then it overtook their actual company and became the product that we know today. And the same for Slack. Slack was a business that got VC money. So who knows the Slack story here? Yeah? For those who don't, just very quickly, Slack was a company that had VC money. They literally got to the point where I can't validate this, I can't go any further. They went back to the VC, said, look, we're going to give you back the money that we've sort of got left. And the VC went, look, I trust you, I'm backing you as a founders, I think there's something there. They built internally just a little comms machine, a little messaging thing. And they went, I think this has got legs. And that's basically what we know today as Slack, and then sold for billions of dollars to Salesforce. So again, it's just using customer validation to kind of, and user feedback to get to it. And the quicker you can get there without spending the money, because if you save that money, you can spend it on putting all of the insights into the actual product, not into gaining the insights.
More questions? You're closer.
I am trying to validate a service, and when I did it for free in the beginning, and I posted it on Facebook groups, I got like so many likes, hundreds of likes in just few minutes, and so many people commenting like, how can we sign up? How can we sign up? And then when I sent them a PM that, okay, this is my next workshop and this is the price, then very few people actually bought it.
Okay.
But I knew that, okay, when I put it, immediately I got many likes and comments for sign-ups. So how do I draw a conclusion from it about the validation?
So great example. What part of this did people stop at? I would argue this. You were validating the value. What stopped them? So my question to you would be, now then, let's go and see if you can do, if you did that same thing for free, right, what would it tell you? Would you, again, just for the sake of it, saying, look, here you go, apply this discount code and it's for free. You could do this. This is often as well, you don't need to give your services away for free, right? You can basically go, here's a discount code. I'm going to charge you $100, but hey, do you know what? I'm going to give you 100 people discount code for free. The fact is, you may give it to 1,000 people. They don't know that. This is Wizard of Oz. You're given that discount code. What you've validated is you've got people onto the course, right? Then I would ask them the question in a post-exit survey, go, look, we gave you the code for free, but in reality, how much would you have paid for this course if you had to part with cash? They might still go nothing, and then you've got to look at it. But they might go, actually, the value of that course was X, but I found the course lacked in this area, this area, and this area. Yeah? So often people put this barrier in the way to then validating what the next step is, because the next step may be that Yahoo moment or that aha moment, and they go, makes sense. I should have done it at if you did it at 100, it should have been 900. It should have been $99.99, because psychological in people's heads that 3 digits is worse than 2 digits.
So does it mean that in the beginning of this trial and validation, I should reduce the cost of my product?
No, I'm saying to you,
I got that.
All of these 4 items here, you are validating every single one of those. So what you've said is, people have gone, there's a clear interest, so you've kind of gone, there's a little bit of a demand. You need to follow through to see, well, how can I validate that my course has got the value to that? So you may go, I'm going to give you a discount code to put it for free. And then you may then say, because you can if it was good, would you mind leaving a review? Right? So you go, I had all these reviews. Use those reviews to remarket. And then other people go, well, Scott reviewed this as 5 stars and he got really lots out of it. The fact that I don't know that Scott got it for free, immaterial. I then go, Scott thought it was 5 stars. I'm going to pay the $100 for it. Yeah? So you're going to validate the value. You then need to value can you make a model out of it? Because that's, again, feasibility. How many of these do you need to sell? Because if you're only going to sell 100 a month at $100, is that enough for you to build a multi-million-dollar company for it? Or is it just enough for you to live? You with me?
What was the landing page like when you actually go to sign up and click through the Facebook ad? What was that experience like? So like a sign up and a pay $100 or, because that's the bit you're trying to get them through next, right?
Yeah.
It's with him. It's like no one likes the part. It's like, what's in it with him? If you don't, what's in it for me? Right? And it always comes back to, what am I going to get? Is the value exchange that I'm going to get from your course enough for me to part? Which is, you might have gone, like I said, I would possibly, in your instance now, just trial that. Hey, look, it's normally $100, but if you use this code, we're going to give it away for free. Because you need to get to the next part, which is validating how many people in that cohort that you've got. Is there a steep? Is there a bell curve? What is it to get to that part? Okay.
So related to this, another question is the pricing which I have put for my product or service. I I have never done business before. I don't know about this. So what I did is I put 50% price of my competitors in Perth, and I am promulgating this idea that, okay, this is better than that, but 50% price. But when I see the user feedbacks at the end of my workshops, they are still giving me like 3 or 4 points out of 5 when I ask them, would you come back again to pay the same price? Like,
so if I play back, you're saying, 1, you discounted the price from your competitors, and then 2, when you did have people who go the course, they marked you pretty lowly.
yeah,
So again, that would come back to, again, value. They're not seeing the value in your course. So what is it? So it doesn't matter about your price, because I would argue as well when it comes to price, and I've done this myself, we lowball ourselves. And I'll give you an example, and I probably shouldn't really be recording this. We went in when we first started, we were like, yeah, we're going to go $2.50 per user per seat, right? And we're like, yeah, we've got an order for 10 grand. Woo, aren't we rock stars in the startup world? And then we hit this barrier, and then we're like, do you know what? We just need to make it easier. It's all you can eat, and all you can eat buffet style. So we said, you can have as many people on the platform for $42,000 a year annual cost. And we were like, great, we got a higher cost. And then we started partnering with some of the big boys in town. And they literally went, we can't put you in on this tender. We were like, why? Like, you really like it? They're like, no, we can't. You're too cheap. We're like, oh. Well, I said, here you go. And they literally scrubbed our thing, and they wrote $110,000 per year for a license. And we went, yeah, if you can get it. And that changed our view straight away. I've told that story to a few. And now every price is like $100,000, because the perception of value in what they got is that from the user's point of view, if you're too cheap, they may undervalue and go, you're not what I'm looking for. Whereas if I pay you more, they then suddenly put you in a different bracket psychologically. Now, in your instance, I would say your problem is different. I'd say it's in the content that you're delivering. And I think it would be to me, your issue is around your star rating. If you're getting half price, but you're getting 5 stars, I would say you're possibly too cheap. You can go more expensive. Anyone else want to, I'm cognizant of time?
Who wants Dave to shred their business?
Sorry. Harsh. I'm sorry, but sometimes I feel... I'm so sorry, by the way, if I've just given you some harsh feedback.
So my question was, if your business model is kind of based on traction and advertising rather than a customer paying like a subscription or something like that, like what would be your advice for validating that?
So your customers, so you're essentially almost like a two-sided marketplace, because you've got to sell to advertisers, and then you've also got to get traction for your users to use your tool. And I think in your instance, you've pitched, and sorry if I'm going to, you're in a really competitive marketplace, right?
Yep.
Like you really want to put like a lot of money into getting your tool out there, because the only way you're going to get advertisers is you need to show them and say, look, I can bring tens of thousands of people to this platform to use it. So ultimately, you're a free model, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, that's what your model's going to be. So what was your question, sorry, again?
So how it relates to advertising the progress.
Yeah, so in that instance, I think you're again, marketplace is hard because you're like, what do you have? Chicken or what comes first? I would say you need to focus on customer acquisition first.
Yep.
Because then you've got the data to go back to the advertisers to say, this is what it is. Now, I'm going to assume, because it's your business and you know your marketplace, that you know what a comparable rate that you're getting from, or you could charge to your advertisers, correct?
Yeah.
So again, they need to see themselves the value in the click-throughs and the rates and all that sort of stuff. So again, if it was me in your situation, my thing would be to go and get customer acquisition. Again, you're in a marketplace that's even triply hard than anybody else's, because one, you've got to validate that your customers actually want your tool, that it's better than Duolingo or anything like that.
Yep.
You've got to fight for competitiveness from a point of view of eyeballs on it. So getting the app store and just getting people to use and stay. That's the other thing. Stay. Yeah. You've got to make it sticky for them to stay, which is kind of how I think Duolingo's done it, because I can hear this ding, ding. Yep. My daughter's doing it because I don't want to lose my 5-day streak. And I think you've got to make it sticky. Once you've got that data, you can then go to your advertisers. But I can see you've got a long way to go until you can actually get to this part here, which is feasibility.
Yep.
You know, and is it, again, the other question I would have if I was looking at investing is it repeatable? So again, it's a tough. I'd say you're definitely in a tough market, unfortunately.
Yep.
Any other questions? But to answer your question, customers, I think customer acquisition. If you've got 1 million people using it, you're no different to Facebook. Like Facebook, the whole model was go and get users, and then they were like, we'll sell advertising because I've just got a captive audience here.
Great presentation. Appreciate the firmness and harshness. That's good. Some hard pills to swallow. Just a quick comment on, so a lot of founders have trepidation with sharing their idea or maybe going out to market to validate. What's your comments on, should they have that fear?
If you're not willing to share your idea, how do you expect customers to find you? And I think that I see this often, right? Oh, I can't. Like the classic one I hear is that founders they're trying to go find money so they can build their MVP, and they then go to a VC, but then they make the VC sign an NDA. I tell you, no VC is ever going to sign an NDA. Your idea is not precious. It is absolutely repeatable. Like it can be copied, and the chances that you are the very first persons to have delivered that is, pretty much zero. I guarantee you. And even we thought, we're the first to come to market, and then we went for a patent, and they went and said, well, this is very close to what you've done. You can't get a patent. So I would say you need to literally be kind of almost like singing your idea out there, right? And I'll tell you why. Because if you and I had the same idea, the way you execute on your idea is completely different to the way I would execute on the idea. And you'll have two different companies ultimately, right? And what makes your company magic is probably you and not me, right? And that is what you've got to understand as founders, is that the way that you're going to have the passion and the drive to move that forwards is better than I possibly would. And again, you don't go and and I've seen this, I was like, oh my God, they're a competitor. I don't want to do it. But ultimately, you look at them 5 years' time, and you're like, they're like this, because they've chosen a niche, we've chosen a niche, and they ultimately went like that. And there was a point in time of about 6 months they looked identical. But your idea is not unique. I think Marcus Holmes says it best, and I can't think what he's saying is, but he's got a saying which is essentially, your idea is worthless. Any other questions? There's one at the back there.
We're going to wrap it up.
Yeah.
You said just now that, there might be an existing solution to the same problem that you're trying to solve, or somebody has come up with the same idea that you're trying to solve or trying to build. My question is that why would they pay you if they can use that existing solution?
So let's take an example of like a scheduling tool, which we built, that's an example, and there are lots of scheduling tools out in the marketplace. Is that what you're saying? Why would they pay us to build that solution if there are other things on the marketplace, yeah? It's simple as you are addressing that very niche problem that those other ones don't. So in our example, we plugged into their actual main computer. So if you're in B2B, business to business, the one thing that we did was we tapped into the one area which was, they had a whole ecosystem, which was Microsoft and Dynamics, and we tapped into that as a sales mechanism, and we basically built the platform on that system. We also then made it niche, right? So it was a scheduling tool, but it's niche to the point where it's specific to allied health companies, right? So it was super niche. All the other tools were very generic, and we were very niche. Now, what we did is we started here, we built lots of capability in that one niche that really answered what they want, but it wasn't so much that I couldn't take it and give it to company 2, company 3, and company 4. When I get to company 5, though, I've then got 4 more sets of data points to then start to make the product more generic. And so I then can undo some of those, this is niche for allied health, and hang on, this can be now applied to the events industry. Okay, so again, you've got to make that decision. There's not a blanket ruling for that, but essentially you've got to look at what is that thing. Niche is where you start, it's not where you finish.
Solve a problem, ultimately.
Yeah, we've got to wrap up.
Another thing that we've just done, that allows us to cut site to validate the idea that we're working on at the moment, which is the idea of a lifetime discount. So we did a wait list, and on the end of the wait list, if people are really interested and if we've really convinced them that we're going to solve their problem, they could pay us $1 for a lifetime discount, and we're amazed how many people would actually give us their credit card
100%.
details when we've
So
actually...
it exactly did what Emily did with that. If we joined up, we had our price locked in for life at that low rate. And I went, do you know what? The value is there, because again, it's about value exchange for customers ahead. Where does it sit in that thing? Thank you very much. I will be here moving chairs around. Well, in fact, I'm going to get Scott to do it, because you normally sit there and talk.
Yeah. You grill these people and assess their businesses.
So if you need any questions,
and
come and
kill
talk to
them.
me afterwards. If not, we'll be
I'll
here in
put
2
chairs away.
weeks.
Help yourself to food. Please, if you want to pitch in 2 weeks' time, send me an email to contact@morningstartup.com.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.